Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your marriage without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm talking about the best marriage support group. There was a lot of pain in my guest Anna's marriage. They fought constantly and struggled through emotional and physical abuse and alcoholism. But when she found out what respect really looks like, those frequent fights, they stopped. And now she feels the breathtaking love that her husband had for her from the beginning. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. Well, that's coming up. But first, I'm going to tell you how to find the best marriage support group. And I'm also going to tell you about an alternative that's open to every wife. Well, almost every wife. And it's totally free, but I'm getting ahead of myself here because I am very passionate about this topic, because before I had a marriage support group, John and I were struggling in our marriage. I was really hurting and I wanted to end my marriage. Marriage counseling didn't work for us, and I didn't know what else to do to get my husband to straighten up. Getting a marriage support group was one of the smartest things I ever did, because I'm such a social creature. Like in high school, really. I mean, I remember I ditched class to go to the taco stand with my pal Renee because that seemed cool. And then I also signed up for advanced placement English because that's what my other pal Marna was doing. That seemed cool. I still find myself wanting to do what the cool kids are doing. So if you're anything like me and you're hanging around someone who's getting divorced, that is likely putting pressure on your relationship. If you're spending time with people who are not only staying married, but also talking about how they're improving their marriage, even if they're facing big challenges, that strengthens your marriage, in my experience. But how do you find a group like that? Because when you're struggling in your marriage, the last thing you want is to end up in the wrong place, wasting time and energy. And if you're anything like I was when my marriage was falling apart, you're already so fragile and so worried, and you don't have the energy to waste. You just need relief from the pain and the stress ASAP. You want a support group where you're going to be around other people who have what you want, and where you're going to feel comfort that you're not the only person with your challenge. And you're going to want to feel validated and seen for the struggle that you're going through. And also to have someone else see how hard it's been for you, and to know that you're not crazy and that there is hope for your situation, that it can improve. You want to hear from others who've worked through that challenge successfully to come out stronger than ever. And you want specific instructions on how they did that. And that's true even if you have a certified relationship coach who's walking you through the 6 intimacy skills, because you can't keep your coach in your pocket with you all day. And there are going to be times when you need support besides just your coaching sessions on Tuesdays. And that's why you want to have a tribe of many like-minded women who are also invested in improving their marriages. Even my marriage doesn't stay as shiny as I like it to be when I don't stay in the juicy conversations with women who are courageously fixing their marriages. You also need the highest level of emotional safety in your marriage support group, which means there has to be a structure and someone or several someones who are highly trained to uphold that structure to keep the emotional safety. Those are the elements that make for a crazy effective marriage support group where women share authentically and vulnerably about what's really happening in their marriages, and everyone supports them, which fosters breakthrough after breakthrough. This marriage support group I'm referring to is the Ridiculously Happy Wife community, which is exclusive to the Ridiculously Happy Wife program. And there is an investment to be in it. If you want the best marriage support group on the planet, that's it. That's what I recommend. But if you're not a member of Ridiculously Happy Wife and you still want to have a great marriage, but you can't join yet because maybe you just found me or you just found this podcast or one of my books, then let me tell you about a free alternative that's open to just about every woman. It's called the Adored Wife Group, and it's a launch pad for women who believe that marriage is important and who are still exploring. It's for women who want to get a sense of what it would be like to be in our marriage support group, the Ridiculously Happy Wife. And there are no obligations in the Adored Wife Group at all, but there are thousands of women like you already in there, and they are dying to meet you. Once you're inside the Adored Wife, you'll learn the common mistakes that hold women back from having all they want, and you'll find inspiration for sure, which will help you take the action to become an adored wife. It requires courage. And you're going to find case studies in there from women who felt completely hopeless, but now know that they are cherished. It will also show you the next steps that you can take for creating a playful, passionate relationship. So to join the Adored Wife group for free, go to lauradoyle.org/group. That's lauradoyle.org/group. Now, if you're ready to take a baby step in becoming an adored wife, I'll see you inside the Adored Wife. Something big is happening here on the Laura Doyle campus, and you are invited. Hundreds of women have become experts on the 6 intimacy skills and transformed their marriages by becoming certified Laura Doyle relationship coaches who live their purpose, have more intimacy, and earn for their families. In my free masterclass, Purpose, Prosperity, and Intimacy, How to Have All Three and Help Others Do the Same, I share directly from our popular relationship coach training and certification course about the number one most important qualification for becoming a successful relationship coach. I also reveal the indispensable first step to having a passionate, peaceful relationship and how to share it with other women. I explain about why our coaches have an unfair advantage over other relationship coaches and counselors. And I go step by step through our proven coaching curriculum and why it's so effective in saving marriages and empowering coaches. Register today for Purpose, Prosperity, and Intimacy. Have all three and help others do the same at lauradoyle.org/purpose. That's lauradoyle.org/purpose. There was a lot of pain in my guest Anna's marriage. They fought constantly and struggled through emotional and physical abuse and alcoholism. But when she found out what respect really looks like, those frequent fights, they stopped. And now she feels the breathtaking love that her husband has always had for her from the beginning. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. Anna, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. Thank you so much for coming on to tell your story.
Thank you so much for having me, Laura. I'm so excited.
Cool. Well, take us back to the beginning. What was going wrong in your relationship? What was happening in those bad old days?
Yeah, well, initially, like you said, things were so good in the beginning, and over time, little things started happening, and it was just so confusing where these fights would start coming from. And then probably about 7 years in, it had gotten to the point where I couldn't even recognize really who my husband was anymore. And it was just, we were fighting multiple times a week, and they were just heated fights. It was very, it was just so scary. My husband had really bad anger problems. Some days, I think he broke my glasses a few times, and I just had no idea what would start the fights. We could be talking about what we're going to do over the weekend. It would turn into some explosive fight, or my husband could be talking about his feelings about something that was happening at work, or in family life, and it would just turn into some explosive fight. Um, and so there was also lots of criticism. I felt like I was constantly being criticized and I couldn't do anything right. With parenting, I felt like my parenting just didn't, like, I didn't raise our child the way that he wanted me to. If I cooked dinner, I never added enough spices or anything like that. And I just felt like, yeah, like everything that I was doing was wrong. And so there was a lot of resentment. There was a lot of resentment on both sides. We were both actually really depressed. I was really tired because we had just had a baby. And so I was never getting any sleep. And I was also working and I was doing all the housework at home. And yeah, so it was just a lot. He talked about divorce a lot. We only fought after the baby was asleep. During the day, it was really, really good. So it's kind of funny because in the day we would get along just fine and just do what we had to do. We were together all the time. So, and it was really important for us to have a happy family. But then at night after the booze came out, mostly, yeah, just these toxic, horrible fights would break out. I remember one day, I can't remember what we were fighting about. I think that he was just expressing how he felt disrespected. And I just kept defending myself because that was my go-to. I always had to defend myself. And he got so angry, he grabbed me by my head and he actually picked me up off the ground and he like shoved me against the closet. Yeah, it was really scary. But it was actually also kind of a relief in a weird way because that was the first time that he had been physical. And I was like, I don't know, like I've been waiting to see if you had this in you. And so it was kind of weird because I was like, I guess maybe you maybe are not like the right person. But then I realized that he was like the most wonderful father. And so I was like, I need to figure this out because obviously I deserve to be treated with love. And I know that he has it in him because I've seen like the most passionate love ever from him. But yeah, so it was actually kind of funny because around that time I had seen in it was a health and like a healthy living and clothing group on Facebook where the lady mentioned the Empowered Wife podcast. And so shortly after this, I listened to it. And in the beginning, when you say, even if your marriage is completely hopeless, and somehow I was like, well, my marriage isn't completely hopeless. So I listened to the beginning of that and I was like, no, this isn't for me. My marriage isn't hopeless. We still get along really well a lot of the time during the day. But yeah, so probably a few weeks or a couple months or something after that incident, there was another incident that happened. And we were fighting super bad. And it was a similar fight. My husband telling me he felt so disrespected and unappreciated. And of course, we've been drinking because we were drinking excessively every night. But we had both reached our limits and we were both just so depressed and so over the resentment towards each other, really. And so he was just telling me he was trying to get his feelings out and I was trying to defend myself and tell him all that he was doing wrong. And he kept telling me, you got to shut up, just shut up. And I just kept going because I was like, I am at the end of my rope. And he actually ended up going, it's so crazy. He ended up going over to our front door, which half of it was like a double pane window, and he smashed his head through the window in our door. Um, and that was just such a pivotal moment. I had never heard a sound so loud as that window breaking. Um, and I couldn't believe it. It was silent, and my husband's head was bleeding everywhere.
Oh,
Um, I'm so sorry. I'm trying not to cry. um,
it's terrifying. And
oh, it was so scary. I thought, oh my God, what did I do to this man? I turned this wonderful, loving human that is the most important person in the world to me. And I literally drove him insane. I literally drove him mad. And it's funny because in the past, I had a moment too where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like hitting a crazy point. But it really made me realize um, how we treat and how we respect others is, I mean, it's game changing. You know, respect is oxygen to men, and especially your husband. And if you are so busy defending yourself, you're telling them you're my enemy, because you don't defend yourself against people unless they're your enemy, right? And that's like the ultimate form of disrespect. One of the most severe forms of disrespect is telling your husband, I need to defend myself against you. Um, and so I realized at that point that I had driven my husband crazy, and I had to fix it.
this is
Yeah.
very
And so,
accountable.
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very accountable point of view, because you could have just said, well, this proves he's just he's crazy. I mean, that's all him. But you didn't.
it was just, yeah, I knew that the man that I fell in love with was in there. And my grandma had always told me, my grandparents had just the most beautiful marriages. And they always told me, when you get married, you have to like remember all the wonderful things and just put your mind and your focus into the good things, because bad times will come up in every marriage. Even if you have a perfect man, he has it in him to get aggressive with you. you know it's funny because after I kind of came out with a story with other women, um I started finding that there were actually lots of women around me with husbands that were just the most amazing men. And I wasn't the only one
You're not the
that
only
had
one.
been.
You're not the only
Yeah.
one.
um but it always came out of the husband feeling completely disrespected and unappreciated. Um, and it's fight or flight instinct. And I feel like your husband is either gonna fight when he feels at his breaking point, or he's gonna flight. And that's when husbands will leave, and my husband has always been completely faithful to me. And I know that he would never betray me. But he is a fighter. And so if he feels like I am not treating him right and he feels suffocated of oxygen, then he might fight. And so I think it's natural for people to do what they feel like they have to do when they're under extreme amounts of depression and anger and that kind of thing. But yeah, so that's when I started listening to the podcast. I was like, okay, well,
Now it's hopeless. I shouldn't
now it's
laugh.
hopeless.
I
Like
shouldn't laugh. It's yeah. I
I
mean it.
know I laugh about it too because I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's when I realized, it wasn't when things are happening to me. It was when I saw this horrible pain that my husband went through because of what I had said. Um, and so I probably listened to your podcast that night until like 4 in the morning. And yeah, it just opened my eyes to so much. And my husband had always told me that he felt so disrespected. And I never understood. I never understood. I was like, how do you feel disrespected? I am the most respectful wife ever. Um, but yeah, so the first thing I did was duct tape. Um, I definitely kept my mouth closed a lot. um, if my husband criticized me, I just kept my lips zipped and didn't say anything. Or I would say, "Oh yeah, I understand." Um, let's see. I also stopped reminding him where the best parking spots were. If he passed a road that we were supposed to turn at, I stopped telling him and I just let it happen. Um,
Hmm.
let's see. That was a lot. I mean, I just really stopped arguing with him.
So
And
I love this piece about how you felt like you were the most respectful wife ever. And what did it mean to you? Like, how did you feel like I'm being respectful? Like in what
yeah,
way?
so um I did all the laundry. I always made dinner, even if it was late. I did everything that he asked of me. Um, if he would ask me to get him a cup of water, I would get him a cup of water. Or, if he told me, um, I don't think that you need to buy that, I wouldn't argue with him about that. I really, I
Mm.
really didn't argue very much, and I wasn't controlling. I tried to control probably maybe like 3 times in the first 2 years of our marriage, and I learned out very quickly that that didn't work.
Didn't work. Didn't work. Wow.
um, yeah, so mostly I thought that because I wasn't arguing and I wasn't controlling, um, and I was honest, that I was respectful and that I did everything for him.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you going into that because I remember thinking the same thing. Like, of course, I'm respectful. Like, if he comes home late, I reheat his dinner. Like, all these things that really had no relevance to respect for my husband, but I thought they were respectful. So it's just fun to hear you. You thought the same thing. Like, you didn't really know what respect was, right, or what it looked
Yeah,
like, and
exactly.
I didn't either.
You know,
So,
it's crazy that nobody tells you.
isn't
They
it?
just expect you to know. And it's kind of funny that there's this common consensus that respecting your husband is doing stuff for him.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
not.
yeah. It's being thoughtful. Yeah,
Actually it's like kind of the opposite, letting him be a man and do stuff for himself.
yeah.
Obviously if he asks me to do something, I will, but respect is more what you don't do. When you don't defend yourself, when you don't criticize how he puts the dishes in the washing machine, how you don't criticize how he washes the laundry or how he parents. Yeah, so I stopped finishing his sentences, all that stuff. And I also started paying more attention to the things that he did do. And I started praising him for that. Whenever he would take out the trash, I'd tell him things like, I love that you're taking out the trash. Not only do I have to or not only do I get to not do it, but I can see your big muscles when you do it. So I would just
Sweet.
make a big deal about all the things that he did. He would always open the gate for me when I come home, and I never even really thought about how that was really sweet because I don't want to have to get out of the car and open the gate to get back in the car and drive through the gate to get back out and close it, and he would always have that door open for me, that gate open when I came home. And so there were a lot of things that he did that I never really paid attention to. And I started paying attention to all that. He also is like a great fixer. Whenever anything breaks in our home, he's always fixing it like right away. And, I think a lot of people just assume that that's like a husband's job. And then I always hear women complaining about how they have to nag their husbands all the time to like fix the dishwasher, or the heater is having a problem and stuff. And I never had to bug my husband about those things that break, because he's a handyman. um and so immediately things got better. Actually, we've since that pivotal night, we've had like 3 fights, and they were like not even fights. They were kind of just more like spats. Like my husband would say something kind of like spatty, and I might reply with a little bit of like a attitude, and then be like, "Oh my goodness, that was so disrespectful. I'm so sorry." Um, I My tongue got away from me a little bit. You're right. Yeah. So, but
Wow. So you're down from
that was,
fighting every night to
yeah. It's 3
3 times.
like spats in the last, I think it's been about a year and a half. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was like miraculous, really.
It is
Um,
miraculous. I mean, but how do you feel though when you're saying, "Oh, you were right. Oh, I'm sorry. I was disrespectful." Does that, I mean, do you feel a little, I don't know, diminished, like you're having to suck it up or?
you know, um, sometimes my husband will throw bait a little bit. And like last night, he was throwing a little bit of bait, and I was just like teasing him through it. So it just, instead of it turning to this like fight like it would have back in the battle days, um, it just turned into this flirty moment. And he just like picked me up and like tossed me on the bed all romantically, and kind of like in a sexy aggressive type of way.
Fun.
And I know. So it's, yeah. So but
What
and
a
then
difference.
a funny thing that I noticed was that the criticisms, um, most of them, and especially these days, now the only things he ever criticizes about are important things. It's not that he's attacking me, it's that he's trying to protect our daughter, or that he's trying to keep me safe. It's not, when he's these days, he doesn't complain about the seasonings on the food or anything like that. If he does um, criticize, like I used to put it, it would be something like, um, these scissors are too close to the edge of the counter. Our daughter can reach them, and she could cut her, like, cut herself and hurt herself. And back in the day, I would have been like, oh my gosh, he is just so mean. Um, but really, he's just trying to keep our daughter safe. And he's trying to also keep us from having to go through that emotional hurt, and me having to deal with the guilt of like, I left the scissors on the counter, so my daughter cut herself, you know? So it's kind of funny that these days I've noticed the only things that he ever criticizes me about are things that I really do need to pay attention to, because they could cause at least some pain or something. He doesn't just get after me for no reason anymore. And he might have back then gotten after me about things that didn't matter. But yeah, these days it's things that are important. So I get it these days.
Yeah. So it
uh,
sounds like you wear such a different pair of spectacles when he's speaking. You're like, oh, he's saying something that might be important. I better tune into this. But I mean, as a mere mortal woman, you must feel that defensive feeling come up sometimes when he's saying things like the
oh, if
scissors.
I do, yeah, if I do, it's definitely a signal that I need self-care. And that's something I haven't really talked about yet because I'm really bad at it.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
starting to get better. And it's funny because the self-care, I didn't start doing until about a year in. And it was during one of my husband's little spats, my husband's and my little spats. And he had said that he we haven't fought in a long time and it's been amazing. And he goes, but you're not like fun and joyful like you were. And that's when I was like, oh man, I guess I got to do this self-care thing. And so then I had to start trying to figure out how to do that. And it was like a learning curve. The 20 things, I think the first day I tried to write 20 things, I got like five. And then when I did those five things, I was like, oh my gosh, only two of these things like actually brought me a little bit of joy.
Oh, I love it.
So, yeah. And I wanted to say, like, so many women that I talk to about this because I literally share your work with so many people on Facebook that I've actually been asked quite a few times if I get like paid to share your stuff. Like, no, it's just amazing. And I have to share it because family is so important.
Yeah.
Having a family is the most important thing that you can do for your kids. Really, it is. And so I have to share it with other people because so many people just don't know. And a lot of these groups that I share on are Christian groups. And I get a lot of hate on there because a lot of women are like, her skills are not biblical. She says if your husband is cheating, to just let him cheat. Or if he's drinking, let him be an alcoholic. And I just wanted to say for those women that First Peter 3 says, wives, submit to your own husbands. So even if some do not believe the word, they may be won over without a word by the conduct of their wives. Like, controlling your husband and telling him what he can and can't do is not going to create what you want. It's just going to create lies on his end and rebellion. Um, and that's what I found when I decided I was going to stop drinking and I was going to try and live and be a more godly woman and a more respectful woman. My husband stopped drinking as well. And so there were a few months where we just completely stopped drinking altogether. And now we do drink like occasionally on the weekends. But it's just been amazing, the difference in our lives. We've both lost actually a lot of weight. My husband's lost like 30 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
and um, he's just great. But I did want to share um, the moment that I knew that the skills were working because I skipped over that part. But it's just such a beautiful story that I had to share it. So we were probably like a couple months after after I found the skills and I started just being respectful and grateful. Um, we were embracing each other in the kitchen and our daughter was running around like a hooligan, all joyful. Um, and she's probably right around 2 at this age. And she just like puts on her brakes and she just like stops like squealing and being silly and she looks at us and she goes, Mommy and Daddy love each other. And
Wow.
she ran over and she like joined the hug. And I was just um like she got to see that even though she never saw us fight, she was like she was a very difficult baby. She was not a happy child. You could tell in the nights after we would have her big blow ups, even though she wouldn't wake up. The next day she would be incredibly fussy. Um, and so I don't think she ever really like saw that pure love that me and her father have for each other. And that moment, at such a young age too, when most kids, I mean, aren't even like, she wasn't even speaking like full sentences yet. I mean, she was like full sentences, but not as clearly as she was. And she just, mommy and daddy love each other. And I just thought that was so beautiful. And it was like, wow, these skills have just changed our lives. And it was just the beginning.
Yeah, that just melts me that you were so clear, like you're giving your daughter this thing that is so important to you to give to her, this happy family and loving parents.
Yeah, it's
Must
the
have
most
been a proud moment, Anna, because you knew you did it.
Yes, I did. And I was just like, I gotta do this for my family and for my daughter because she deserves to see what a loving family and what loving parents are like. Um, yeah, so it was just, I started doing other things too after that. I started with some, like I said, the self-care. I actually started writing gratitudes because at some point I was like, this is great. We're not fighting, but I still feel like I'm doing everything. And so I started writing gratitudes and I started telling my husband the gratitudes more recently because I have a very hard time with vulnerability. That's like a struggle point for me, definitely. Um, but yeah, so recently I started telling my husband the gratitudes. I did start using ouch. I've only used it a few times because I get so nervous to say it out loud. Normally I say it in my head and then I'm like, can I do it? Can I do it? Ouch. But I am getting better at that and it always works really well.
What do you mean? How
But
do you mean it
yeah,
works? Like how does it work?
like my husband will stop, like if he's saying, I can't even think of an example because it's been a while since he actually like has hurt my feelings. Um, but yeah, if he would say something, I mean, like I said, I can't think of an example right now because it's been probably about a year since he said anything that was actually like hurtful.
Wow.
But yeah, but if he were to say something that was like an ouch moment, like let's say, how many times do I need to tell you to put spices on the food or something? I'd and if I'd say ouch, then it just kind of makes him realize that he hit a tender spot. Um, but yeah, I also even just being silent, if you don't have the courage to say ouch, like like I don't have or didn't have a lot of the time, just being silent kind of opens up the room for him to hear himself because he doesn't have to hear you defending yourself. Um, so that silence is really good too. And that helps a lot. So yeah, things are great these days. It's so playful in our house. There's a lot of flirting. My husband the other day, actually, he was giving me all this gratitude out of nowhere. And he goes, it was actually on Saturday night. He goes, I know I don't tell you this enough, but you are just a wonderful mother and you're a wonderful woman. And to top it off, you're foxy is expletive.
I love it.
But I was just, oh, I'm foxy. So sweet.
So cool. Yeah.
I know. So, but yeah, there's like lots of flirting, lots of fun. We're always like dancing around the house and singing. Um, yeah, my husband, like I said, we both stopped drinking heavily. My husband, if he ever goes to the store to get like milk or something, he'll always bring home a surprise for me and our daughter. Like he'll bring me home a yummy tea that he knows I enjoy or chocolate because I'm a huge sweet person. But his anger, Laura, his anger is gone.
What?
It's gone. I
Where did it
haven't seen
go?
him angry. I have no idea. It's so hilarious because actually it's funny because I can't remember I think he was talking to one of his friends the other day, and his friend goes, "You are not like the same person that you were like 6 months
Wow.
ago."
So
Like
his
even his
friends
friends,
notice a difference in him.
yes, even his friends have noticed. And afterwards they expressed that they were concerned with the amount of drinking that we were doing and stuff, but none of them ever wanted to say anything.
Wow.
But yeah, the anger is totally gone. I can't even remember the last time he got angry, and he used to be so angry and so destructive. And it just goes to show how being a good wife can really bring out the best in your husband. And being a good mom can bring out the best in your kids. Being a good daughter can bring the best out in your
Parents.
parents. So it's the power that we do have is just by how we hold ourselves, and the words that we choose to speak is just so powerful. You know, you can turn a joyful man into an aggressive, depressed human, or you can turn an angry man into a joyful, passionate, loving husband. You know, like it, I've never known so well how my actions affect others. Um, and so it's so powerful. But yeah, my husband, it's so funny because he actually, I feel like he's changed, um, maybe more than I have. It's insane. He vacuums and he mops the house every week. He's got, he like used to never really clean anything except like his electronics and different things like that, his musical instruments and stuff. And now he cleans the floors and mops the floors. It was like a month or two ago. I came home from work and he was cleaning the toilets, and he bought this stuff to like make it so that the toilets stay clean longer, which I would have never in a million years like ever. I didn't even know that he knew where the toilet brush was. Um,
Who is this man?
I know. It's amazing. So he's been, he had a lot of issues with my family for many, many years. Because of my family was really, really disrespectful to him in the beginning, painfully so. And my brother painted us a picture like a couple years ago, and my husband hung it up on the wall, and and I didn't even have to ask him. He's just been working on the house, and it's really amazing, like the transformation. I'm just so thankful and so grateful that I found your your podcast, because it was the main thing that helped me. I also bought The Surrendered Wife and The Empowered Wife. Um, and I think I actually really enjoyed The Surrendered Wife. um, I enjoyed both of them, but The Surrendered Wife really spoke with me more. Um, but yeah, it's just been, you saved my family. It's
Oh,
by the grace of God that I found the skills.
oh, wow. Wow. I'm so glad we found each other. I'm really inspired and impressed by the transformation in your marriage too. And congratulations on fixing your family, making it so that your daughter runs up, puts on her brakes and runs over to hug you guys and says, Mommy and Daddy love each other. And I mean, there might have been moments, I'm guessing, when he was picking you up by your head or smashing his head through a glass, through a window. I mean, were there moments when you thought, I might have to get away from him? I might have to divorce, or did you
Yeah,
just you never?
uh, if he wasn't such a wonderful father, he's literally the best. He's the best dad I could have ever imagined. Um, the patience that he has for our daughter and the love and the playfulness, and it's just the most beautiful thing. And I could never, and I've still loved him through it all. I still have loved him more than anything. Um, and so I just knew, and I have so much faith. I always believe everything happens for a reason, even if it's very hard to understand why. But I have so much faith that I knew that God had a plan through all of this. Um, and it just took time, and it took growth in order for us to get past that and rebuild our beautiful family. Yeah, so I always had faith in us. My husband definitely brought up divorce a lot because he wanted what was best for our daughter. But I knew that divorce wasn't best. I knew that, evidence shows that a family that stays together is just the best thing that you can do for your kids. They'll earn more money. They'll have better luck in their own marriages. They're less likely to have mental health issues. They're less likely to turn to drugs or alcohol. Yeah, so I knew that we had to make it work. And I wasn't going to give up trying to find a way. And I knew that God would point me to the way to fix our marriage.
Wow. I think this is so impressive. I just really love your commitment and your faith that you had throughout, because I think someone else could say, well, this incident defines him, right? Or this, or there's drinking, there's abuse. So that's over the line. A lot of people, I don't know if you shared it with anybody, but some people would have said to get out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. A lot of people, whenever I brought it so I did bring it to a few different platforms to see what I should, like, how can I fix this? Because I didn't know. And everybody was just, you're an idiot for not leaving soon.
Wow.
Is what I got told over and over. And if anybody else is in a situation like ours was, and I tell them, you can fix this. Like, this is how you do it. I get a text for that too. I'm like,
I
this
bet.
sweet woman is asking how she can fix her family. She doesn't want to hear get out.
No.
She wants to hear how to fix it. So,
absolutely.
I know that anyone listening to the podcast, no matter the struggles and the trials you're going through in your marriage, you have the power to fix it. You just have to know how. You have to have the skills. I think faith is a huge part of it too. You have to have faith because times are going to get hard, and you have to know that that God is watching over you and that He's got your back. And even sometimes these days when I'm struggling, if I'm feeling resentful about anything, or if I'm like trying to keep my mouth shut, and not be critical, I just think God is with me. God is watching me. Like, everything is going to come out perfectly and how it should. And so the faith is super important, and the skills are definitely super important as well. I couldn't have done it without either. So.
And what is, where should a woman start if she is where you were, where she's thinking, where people are telling her she's an idiot for staying? And she knows there's something, there's some reason that she wants to stay, right? She's got this faith, like you have, and she wants to fix it. How should she start? What's your best tip?
My best tip would be stop defending yourself. See your husband's best. My husband would kill for me. And I know that most men would. Men are built to protect what's theirs. And so he might be aggressive with you right now, and it's because he's not getting what he needs. And what he needs is you to see the best in him, because sometimes nobody else sees the best in him. And if not even his wife sees the best in him, and if she's critical and defending herself, if you're critical and defending yourself against your husband, and you're disrespecting him and not seeing his best, and other people aren't either, he's, he's hurting, and he needs you to have faith in him.
Beautiful.
So that's what I would say.
It's so wise. It's very moving. That's very moving. What would you say to Anna if you could go back in time and tell her what you know now?
Oh, Anna, you don't need to defend yourself. just have faith. You know that your husband loves you. He loves you more than anything. And he just needs you to see that everything that he does is for you. He really does. He gives up so much for you. And all he wants is you to be happy, and you're making him feel like he's a failure, and that's painful. So just support him and love him and see his best and keep your mouth shut.
Wow. And so
defend yourself.
And I'm guessing he doesn't bring up divorce anymore. Or I mean,
No.
does he? I should ask. Yeah, that's not.
The other day he was just saying how lucky he is to have me, how lucky we are to have each other. It's, yeah. Our marriage is so beautiful.
Well,
it's
honestly,
better than I think anyone could imagine.
Really? Better than anyone could imagine. That's pretty good.
Well,
Anna.
better than most people could imagine. I guess a lot of the empowered wives on here have great marriages too, but if they haven't heard of your skills and they're not practicing them, they couldn't imagine how great great their marriage could get and how great ours is.
I agree. Well, you sound like a future coach to me because, first of all, you can't shut up about the skills, right? You have to tell everyone.
Yeah.
They could try this. You could try this. But also the transformation that you've created is so impressive. Like, people think it's not possible what you did. So it just sounds like a miracle, but I give you all the credit. And I'm super inspired to get to hear the story of how you did it today. Thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably and authentically with us today, Anna.
Thank you so much for having me, Laura. I feel so blessed.
If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week's podcast will answer the question, why is marriage important? In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that I hardly ever use my vacuum. All it does is collect dust.